and it kind of felt like your mom, like, condescendingly telling you that she was right all along.
We paid about 30 bucks a ticket, and that's about as high as I would personally be willing to pay for something like that.
And you know where I ended up? On the camel trunks. Just knocked that thing out. It was the best thing ever.
And she kind of like leapt up out of her seat and she was like, I am not the president of the United States. Where was that Kamala Harris the entire campaign trail? We're not dancing on Legacy Media's grave, but it's in hospice care right now.
Yeah, like, Megyn Kelly is somebody who believes it's not only dead, but in the pits of hell. Like, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Washed Up Weekly, where we analyze the news and report on it so that you don't have to listen to the legacy media that your grandparents do. And this is episode 28.
And I'm Colin, this is Abby. We're in Washington, D.C., and this week we kind of have a special story for everyone that involves very much being in D.C. And we got to see Kamala Harris's book tour last week. And we're going to be talking about just the event itself and what we took away from it. It could get kind of interesting, so stick with us.
Yeah, neither of us have read the book beforehand. At least, have you read it after at all?
No, I've not had the time at
Yeah,
all.
I also didn't have the time. I told myself that I would try to listen to the audiobook while I was working and then never got around to it, slash did not want to pay for the audiobook. And then I was on hold at the library for the audiobook for like so many weeks and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go in blindly.
So the event itself, how did you feel about everything that we saw?
It was cool. I mean, it I never thought that I would be in the same room as Kamala Harris. Never thought I'd be in the same like 100 feet as like Trump either, but we did that at the military parade. I kind of joked to Colin and I was like, we do it all. We saw Trump at the military parade to cover that for Washed Up, and now we're here to cover Kamala's book tour for Washed Up.
Yeah,
Um,
so who's next?
yeah. Oh God, I have no idea. But I want to say the first thing that I noticed about the event itself was how different the crowd was. Like, I think we were comparing to each other the line that we stood in for the military parade together versus the line we were standing in for the book tour together. Um, Definitely a lot more diverse, I'd want to say. I think the people behind us weren't from DC though, because I was kind of eavesdropping on their conversation.
Yeah, it was interesting to compare the crowds, like you said, and I definitely think there was a lot more like a little bit older people, a little older crowd, pe like professional people just got off of work mostly because it was an evening event. It was on last Thursday, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so like people just got off work. It's getting cold in DC, so everyone was kind of dressed up a little bit more. As far as like this event, it was all you had to pay to go as well to like buy a ticket. With the military parade, it was free, so that
Hmm.
probably drew more people. Um, and we, I'm at liberty to say we did not pay very much, but I know that some people paid like upwards of like 800 plus dollars to get in kind of the front row seats. I think it's okay to say we paid about 30 bucks a ticket, and that's about as high as I would personally be willing to pay for something like that. Like if it had gone past 30, I would have probably not gone.
We were also sat at like literally the furthest possible seat from her.
Mm.
However, it was still closer than I thought it would be, if that makes sense. Like distance wise, I feel like we were still like in a pretty close vicinity to her. I didn't think that the theater was that big. It was also really pretty. Like I was taking photos of the theater. Um, and those like front seats that you were referencing, there were tables in between the seats, and I saw different menus, and it looked like that people were able to call service to their tables too. So those must have been so expensive.
It was kind of fun being in the very, very, very back row though, like just sitting together and we were talking about Washed Up, of course, and talking about like I don't know, just different things we hope and plan for the podcast and whatnot. But yeah, the longer that we've been doing this podcast and the more events we've gotten to go to and cover and things we've gotten to hear, I don't know, it's just been like a really great experience and I don't know, I feel like I learn something new every single week that we do this and am really starting to enjoy it.
And I love getting to cover events like only in DC or things that we can have a unique perspective on. Not only because we can do less research and we're our own sources, but because it's just so fun to be able to capture it in our podcast and recount the story as exactly as it was, exactly as like we experienced it. Speaking of, did you have anything that she particularly said that you enjoyed the most, agreed with the most?
So I was thinking about how I would cover it if I had to write an article about it,
Hmm.
and for sure there was one moment that stood out in particular. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
where, Harris was getting heckled by people in like kind of the front rows.
Museum of Modern Art. They asked me to join. And during that period of time,
I don't know, they must have paid to get in to heckle her, which takes a lot of willpower, I think. But so she was
I think
getting,
we're in the front rows
yeah.
too, like what you were saying, like
So
upwards of like
I don't know.
$800.
I don't know how I feel about that, but they were saying various different things. We couldn't really hear from the back, but I think it pertained to the war between Israel and Gaza and Hamas. And they kept saying different stuff, and she was kind of avoiding it, not like paying attention. But then they finally said something that like really got to her, and she kind of like leapt up out of her seat, and she was like, "I am not the president of the United States." And then like everyone in the crowd was like, what?" Like, what just happened? It was
Especially for
scary.
us because we were in the very, very back. I think we had more of a delayed reaction. Colin and I both talked about kind of getting a little scared. I definitely got a little scared too because I did not expect her to get up so suddenly.
I was
And
impressed.
yeah, it
Genuinely.
was cool. Like I don't think she planned on doing that. Surely I haven't done any research on if there's hecklers at other places, but I'm sure it
I think
came
there.
to like a climax in DC, right? Like, and I'm sure other emotions may have come up to her and she was probably like fed up by now. What tour stop was it? Like, do you know?
She's like a couple weeks in, I think.
Yeah, and when she did say that, there were a couple other times that the hecklers or people were chanting different things. And I think it was like the third or fourth time, and she was talking about, oh gosh, I wish I could remember exactly what she was talking about, in that moment. But she was definitely being interrupted, got up, did that, and the whole crowd like froze or and then started like chanting her name.
it's late. It's late. You ate that up.
And
Yeah.
the person or people, I'm pretty sure were escorted out. Like I saw security go down there too.
I mean, my initial reaction genuinely was kind of where was that Kamala Harris the entire campaign trail? Not to say that she didn't have her moments on the campaign trail of like real tenacity and fight, but at the same time, I think the whole book tour is, about the 107 days of her campaign. And I feel like the book, even though I haven't really read it, my understanding of other people having read it is that it's sort of making all these, not excuses, but like explanations of why she didn't win and like the odds that were stacked against her and how she had to just like kind of figure stuff out on the fly. But like the genuine fight that she showed in that moment, like literally the word I would have used is leap out of her chair. I saw.
She did like she
Yes.
genuinely leapt out of her
It was
chair.
like one
It
second she
happened
was in
so
her
fast.
chair, the next she's up. And it was crazy. And so I went to the Washington Post the next morning and I was like, surely this is gonna be the lead. Like they must bring this up because it was such a like jarring moment. And they did put it in the article about her stop in DC, but it was kind of like buried in like the fifth paragraph. And I was like, if I was writing an article about this would have been maybe the headline, but definitely the first paragraph.
Kamala claps back.
Yeah, or like Kamala confronts crowd or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been
Claps
a good
back, that's
headline.
better.
Um, I thought that again, that was like you said, like where was that Kamala? I almost thought to myself, like she was playing it really safe when it came to her campaign, and it came across as more muted to, I think, a lot of the voters, in a way of like, why aren't you doing anything? But I'm kind of glad that she did something like that to show us what I guess could have been or maybe will be. We were talking about it, like I'm sure that she's planning for 2028 or at least setting the setting the path to it, and this book tour has like something to do with it as well.
Well, see, it's interesting because on the campaign trail, she was criticized kind of ruthlessly for not being authentic. And a lot of people were saying, like, we don't even know who she is. She's just kind of acting or pretending to be something that she thinks that her voters will want. And at least if you say nothing else, when she was in that moment of like just genuine rage, I feel like I was like, oh, that's Kamala Harris. I was like, that is the prosecutor turned AG from California who, confronted Brett Kavanaugh and his Senate confirmation. I was like, that's Kamala Harris. I don't know who's been kind of coaching her to maybe stay away from like anger, rage. I'm sure that there's a lot that goes into this kind of coaching and the PR of all of it. And like maybe, especially for women, it might be more taboo for them to kind of express that genuine anger. But when she did, I was like, that seems authentic to me. For possibly the first time I've heard Kamala speak, I was like, that's her.
Is there any piece of advice or wisdom that you would have asked for instead of the commentator who was there?
Um, okay, so I thought the moderator did a decent job. I think her name was Kimmy Crawford.
Hmm.
I think she did a decent job of working her way up to the more hard-hitting questions. Like she started off really softball questions, just like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? But I feel like by the time we were toward the end, it was more probing about like where do we go from here? What's the state of the country? Even kind of asking her, are you going to run again loosely? Which is like the questions people actually want to hear. So I personally would have asked her, what did you know about Joe Biden's health decline and when did he start showing signs? And did you feel the need to like overcompensate and defend him in the media and whatnot? And if so, why? And would you do it different? That's what I would ask her.
Such a long, you're like a long
What?
question. Yeah, I think I would have asked something really similar. I need to read the book because I feel like I'm like, is there even answers in the book? I feel like when it comes to political figures and like authenticity, I highly doubt she would be super transparent when it comes to that, especially if she is setting the trail to run in 2028.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the book, from what I've heard, touches on it, where she felt kind of hamstrung by Biden's staff, where like they would either leave her out of communications or, I don't know, just even kind of in some ways hinder her. She was in a tough position where it's like you can't seem overeager for the
Hmm.
president to drop out. Even if that is maybe a goal of hers to eventually be president, it's like you can't be rooting for your boss to lose. I think she played it really safe in terms of like supporting Biden proactively throughout the entire thing, including after he dropped out. But if done differently, she probably should have differentiated herself from Biden a bit more.
Hmm. I I really want to, yeah, I'm gonna read it. I think I said that last time, but I definitely am going to read it. One of my favorite parts, speaking of future elections, of what she was saying was talking about her past election and saying how her winning wouldn't have solved everything. It's something that Colin and I both touched on afterwards, and even like the crowd reaction to it. It was kind of like a lighthearted joke that she made, but it rang like really true, where she was talking about how change takes a lifetime and like more so when it comes to changing the laws or policy or anything like that. And if she had won the election, that would have just been like the start or just like one point. Like it wouldn't have solved everything.
Definitely. I think in Washington, D.C., the people who are, actively playing partisan politics and identify as one team or the other, they kind of suffer from this delusion sometimes of like, if only our team could win, then it would usher in utopia, essentially. And I thought it was at least refreshing that Harris was acknowledging, like, even if she had won, if the Democrats had won, if, Trump wasn't the president or disappeared from the public scene entirely, like there would still be really hard work to do. She kind of gets crapped on sometimes because she always says the same phrases, and one of them being hard work is good work. But
Hmm.
but to her point, like there's always going to be difficult things that come down the pipeline, and the party in power is not the cure and the fix to every single issue. But to your point about watching the audience, there were some people in the audience who were, one girl in front of us in particular, when Harris said like one election isn't going to solve all of our problems, like it wouldn't have changed da 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 da. Da." The girl in front of us was kind of nodding along, like yes it would have if only you. And I was like, I think Harris was more correct in her assessment of like it takes a lifetime of hard work for substantive change to happen, and we can't hinge everything on the results of one election.
And I think that is also the issue with partisan politics in feeling that loyalty and tie to hard, heavy support the person on the side that you're on. Like, oh my God, yes. Like if you won, you would fix everything. Believing it to the point that, like you said, it would be a beautiful, wonderful utopia when in actuality it is just one step toward whatever you believe in, or one step toward maybe a possible change. But I totally agree that like I'm glad she said something like that because I'm in favor of that. And I don't think that the two-party system usually is in favor of that. And I can't imagine Trump saying something like that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think Trump would say anything like that at all because he truly believes like now that he's president,
That
everything
he's the
is.
savior.
Yeah, pretty much. And a lot of the Trump supporters too believe that because he was elected, it's gonna again usher in utopia. And clearly, maybe utopia is a few months late, but I would say we're far from that, and I don't anticipate it coming anytime soon.
Yeah, no, me neither.
So okay, I had strong feelings about one of the anecdotes that she told. I'm curious if you did too, and if so, I'll let you take it first. It was an anecdote where she was talking about her birthday and how her husband forgot slash didn't rise to the occasion. So, what did you think of that anecdote? Maybe you can tell our audience about that a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely could see why she told this story. Like she was trying to be relatable and talk about like, oh yeah, my husband forgot my birthday, blah 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 blah. I'm just like a normal wife and um I made him make it up to me, stuff like that. And I I kind of thought about how politicians and public figures and celebrities kind of need to consistently have this attitude of relatability around them. It doesn't matter if you're a political figure in the limelight. A lot of public figures in general, I feel like need this relatability for some reason. Like it's it's like the reason why I think a lot of people don't like celebrity at the moment too, because trying to be relatable doesn't come off across as super authentic. And I'm not saying that she's a liar, and I'm not saying that that didn't happen because I'm sure that it did, but it just even felt like it just felt really rehearsed too. And it was a sweet story. Like I can't sit here and say that it's not. I mean, I personally don't like when I wouldn't I don't think I would tell a story like that. There could have been stronger stories, I think, to talk about her relationship with her husband because I think the question was something like the world getting to know Doug or something like that around the sort. I think it was about I think the Kemi,
Hmm.
she was asking for advice about like relationships and like healthy relationships. And it just seems like a weird anecdote to tell when it comes to like if it's like a healthy relationship or a long-lasting relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about I think the story, this anecdote she told was meant to come across as relatable, and as soon as you're trying to be relatable, you're missing the mark already. Or as soon as you're trying to be authentic, you're missing the mark. And unfortunately, a lot of politicians struggle with that because they're surrounded by PR people who are helping them manage their image and their presentation. And I think it has a very counter um, it harms that outcome more than it helps it. And So I'm going to tell the story just a little bit in the way that she told it, where she's saying that it was her birthday, her teams organized for Doug and her to be together, to celebrate together. Her birthday was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the 2024
Election. Yeah.
election. And so they finally were like together in a hotel, kind of like trying to decompress. And he got her this gift that was like a piece of jewelry that had their anniversary on it. So Kamala kind of made this like remark about how like, oh, he was trying to get a 2 for 1, like maybe he intended to give that for their anniversary, but now he was giving it in the birthday as sort of like a replacement gift. And then she said that she was kind of exhausted, so she went to go take a bath, which is her way of decompressing. And she's in the bath until she's ready to get out, and then she realizes that the towels are across the room. So she calls out to Doug, trying to see if he'll come in and like get her a towel. He doesn't answer, so she FaceTimes him. He picks up, he says like what? Kind of like abrupt, and she kind of gets mad at him, and they're going back and forth over either FaceTime or he finally comes in the room and they're going back and forth. And she said like they really got into it. And I think this was a result of building tension from having campaigned so hard for on both of their parts. So I totally understand that. And like couples have moments like that. And I think that's the relatable part of the
Yeah, like she
story.
was trying to be relatable in that aspect of like, yes, building tensions. It wasn't actually about the towels. Like,
Mhm. And I totally get that.
yeah.
However, some of the details of the story kind of like, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I feel like the story doesn't make her sound as relatable as she thinks, as we discussed. So finally they're going at it, it's getting heated, and Doug says something like, "We can't turn on each other," which is supposed to be like kind of the sweet culmination, reconciliation. And I think that it is all in all like kind of a sweet story in that way. But I just found the details of it to be kind of odd. Again, I don't know why she would tell it on this book tour, especially if she's trying to run again in 28, because kind of one really cruel kind of mean interpretation of it is why couldn't she just stand up and get herself a towel across the room? That I mean that crossed my mind. I was like, you know, if I'm gonna like dissect this story, I think that's a genuine question. Like, okay, you're running to be like the leader of the free world, and yeah, it would be kind of cold and miserable to get up and like walk across the bathroom, and you're already kind of pissed off because it's your birthday and your husband maybe forgot slash didn't meet the moment. But I'm like, if I am thinking that I'm capable of being the leader of the free world, I think it's incumbent on me to put myself through the misery of standing up and being cold and getting my own towel. I mean, that's kind of a mean take on it, but that was my genuine in the moment reaction, though I sympathize with all of the other crap she was dealing with in that moment.
No, I totally get it in that you're so right and she's so right in talking about the buildup of this fight. Like, it's not just about towels, it's about more. And I'm sure she was under so much stress with the election just a couple weeks away. And Doug was probably under a lot of stress too, as her partner, as a first gentleman, her doing her job too at the same
Yep.
time. Like, I remember she also talked about that, like, a little bit as well, talking about prioritizing goals. And when it came down to it, she had said that she was vice president before she was running a campaign, which I honestly appreciated.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to look back and be like, what was happening then and what was she doing during that time?
Well, she brought up Hurricane Helene and
Oh,
how
yeah, you're
she had
right.
to kind of go to the scene of that and help and be there and like meet people and how she was trying to get like FEMA, what doing what they needed to do. And so I respected that part, like you said, where she said like her first priority was VP, second was campaigning.
Yeah, I totally respected that part. But going back to the story, I think, again, like, we're cursed in a way of like, why is this political figure telling this story? What are they gaining from it? What, why would this push them ahead in the future election? Like, in my mind, which is such a curse nowadays, it's like nothing is said without purpose,
Yeah.
and you kind of tear it apart. And I think that's what we are both doing. But that doesn't take away from the fact that all of those elements within the story may be true, like the tension and like fighting with your partner. Like that's all relatable stuff. But are you being relatable with a purpose? Is the question. Most likely, yes.
Because, like, in my head, I had imagined, okay, first of all, I think a lot of these books are frankly probably ghostwritten. I don't know for sure that this book was ghostwritten, but a lot of times, like, the politician will just sit down with a ghostwriter, they'll discuss the content of the book, and then the ghostwriter will actually, like, put it into linear words.
I don't know if the audio can pick this up or not,
It's a interesting little
but
plane helicopter flying by.
here's the flame.
Um, Yeah, so it was probably in all likelihood ghost written. Not to say that Kamala had like no influence on the. I'm sure she told the story. She probably had editorial oversight. Like probably wrote parts, if not all of it. But anyway, my point being that I think it was very much focus group tested, probably, where they're like, okay, what stories in all of the stories that we have to tell are going to resonate the most with our audience, and they probably did the same thing in relationship to uh, the stories that she would tell on the tour. And so it's interesting to me that again they chose that story to tell among all of them because, like you said, they're trying to get at the relatability, authenticity thing. In I think in our shared view, it came across a bit forced. Slash, we're always suspect about the motive behind it.
And it brings a question in my mind of how does a political figure or even just public figure even come across as, I guess, relatable or authentic? And I was trying to think of different people who I truly thought were authentic and are in the limelight. Do you have any? Have you thought of any?
I mean, that's tough because I feel like in as much as you can sometimes be rewarded for being authentic, you can also be kind of crucified if you're too open and, invite a lot of blow like blowback criticism, etc. So a lot of people I think in public eye, like you said, have to have like sort of a persona that they put forward and kind of like shields them from feeling the immediate effect of the criticism. But I don't know. I mean, let me think more. Let me think more about specific individuals. But do you have
I
anyone?
I People that come to mind, I had a really hard time thinking of like political figures that come to mind. And then I started thinking to myself, let me empathize with them for a minute. Because if I was a political figure, which I never will be, I am very comfortable saying that on this podcast. At least anything beyond like, I don't know, like the education board in like my local community or something like that. But I never want to be a politician, never will be. And I can still put myself in their shoes and think to myself, wow, like I would want a separation of myself and the politician slash change policy person in me, like if I'm a politician for all the right reasons, for example, like if I really care about the environment or something and I'm there like campaigning for the environment and recycling and everything within the government to make our planet more sustainable, even if it's for like solely those reasons, I don't think that I would want anyone able to tear into me in a way that would affect my personal life, even if I wasn't even doing anything wrong. So I can sort of empathize with that in having to have a shield and a team and all these people like controlling you. And I'm sure that it takes such a type of person to be able to present in a way that is authentic and is relatable and doesn't come across as super robotic and stiff, because I feel like if I was told by a team to say certain things online or present myself a certain way, I just know myself, like I would be the most robotic, stiff person and so unrelatable, so inauthentic. So I mean, I guess it's sort of impressive the way that they're able to come across relatable, and I think it works for a fair amount of people, but for us who are reading into like the lines and in between like media and looking deeper into it, it doesn't.
I have to say, so one person who comes to mind as someone who I think does a good job. You may or may not agree with this, but I think Megyn Kelly, the more conservative commentator does a good job of this. I mean, not only does she have a memoir that's pretty personal, goes into her like life story, backstory, how she got into media news at Fox and then eventually NBC, and now she's completely just independent.
Hmm.
And I think throughout her whole career, she's done a good job of sort of balancing the role that she's in of like a hard news reporter who has reported on some really challenging stories over the years, and does so like very, very factually. Also has like a legal background, so really kind of like her analysis is always extremely cutting and to the point and accurate in my view. But then at the same time, again, bringing in like the personal side, the anecdotes, so that she's reaching an audience and connecting with them. And I would say like I've listened to her show for like 3 years now, and now I feel like know a lot of details about her. Like obviously not like you would know like an actual friend or person that is in your life, but like if you kind of sprinkle in the details here and there along the way, I think your like loyal audience listeners will piece together an understanding of you that can actually be pretty comprehensive. But that takes a lot of skill as a commentator to be both things at once, the relentless, factual public figure who's serving in a role that's providing value to people, and then also someone with like warmth and who's genuine and vulnerable at times in the right times in the right way. It's very, very difficult, but I do think she does a good job of it.
I like that she is staying true to her beliefs and like who she is as a person for at least the most part. Like from what I've listened, like if you call out Megyn Kelly, like she will call you out right back. Like she is so unafraid
Yeah.
of the media, especially the media. Like legacy media to her is completely 100% dead. Whereas I think that there's like a heartbeat there.
We've
Like,
said we're not dancing on Legacy Media's grave, but it's in hospice care right now.
yeah, like Megyn Kelly is somebody who believes it's not only dead, but in the pits of hell. Like she hates legacy media. Um, and she's also just somebody who will call you out for anything that she personally thinks
Like even
is
Jillian Michaels is afraid of her.
like that she personally thinks is wrong. But I mean, I haven't seen her call out Trump recently, but she has in the past.
But I guess like so I think Kamala doesn't maybe why she struggles to come across in that way is because well, her career path has been different, and so she's been a politician. And I think politicians are, again, often more coached and maybe less media savvy. So I think Kamala kind of struggles with the connection aspect a bit. And I think in order to like come across as authentic and real, you have to have made a practice out of critical thinking and having opinions.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, like I don't think just being a career prosecutor, attorney general, senator, I don't think that affords you many opportunities to really like be a deep critical thinker. It's sort of like you have a set of prescriptions and you're trying to apply the law to the situation, and that's kind of the realm of that in which you operate. And Harris admitted that. She was like, I'm a very task-oriented person, but sometimes that can make you a little bit less like visionary, a little bit less inspirational, a little bit less able to connect.
And I think in the beginning of her campaign, like not from reading the book, because like I said, I haven't read the book, but from my experience in general, I remember the beginning of her campaign was so strong. Like that was the strongest part of her campaign. And the most inspirational and the most hopeful part of it was when she stepped up to run as a Democratic nominee after Biden stepped down. And there was this new like light in the air and on social media, like everyone because everyone knew that there was something going on with Biden.
With the with the COVID, excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Even the left knew, and maybe not the left people who were like supporting him in the limelight, like they were not willing or big enough as people to admit it. Like I think that was a huge issue. That they weren't able to call it out either.
In your own party are wondering if President Biden should even step aside. What do you say to that?
Listen, first of all, What we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And
because they wanted to win and then it just happened too late and all this stuff was happening. But when that happened and she stepped in, I remember seeing things brighter for like a day and a half. Like, I remember texting you too and being like, whoa, I think there's hope. There's
Yeah.
hope yet. Like you and like mutual friends, it felt really different. And I wish that she was able to ride that out longer or capitalize on that more, but I just don't think that they planned it out well enough. And honestly, for have her having known about Biden's mental decline, like we'd said, we don't really know for how long. They honestly, that team should have been planning her campaign and that messaging and how she was going to ride out onto that light, I guess, much better than the way that it ended up folding out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember obviously everyone knows it as Brat Summer, the summer of 2024, July into August. Very distinct time in my memory, but for sure it felt like she was kind of on a high then. She raised like $2 billion, I think. A crazy amount of money, and she was getting all these media hits. And well, so that's the other thing. Like you said, they should have probably been preparing for this longer and better, because when she was announced as the candidate, the nominee, she didn't do any media for like, I want to say at least around 20 days.
Yeah, that was, and 20 days is like 4 years in media
Yeah,
world. Like
yeah.
it was way too long.
No, literally. And so I think that really hurt her, because she needed to be able to define herself almost immediately as like, this is who I am, this is how I'm different than Joe Biden, this is how I'm different than Trump. I'm going to take him on, and here's my policy agenda, boom, 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 boom. And she really, I think, the hope, the inspiration that people felt in the first several weeks into the DNC, which I think we've said before was her strongest.
DNC was like peak.
Mhm. And I think her speech at the DNC was great. And I think I remember texting either you or someone else and saying, like, I think she's going to win after her speech at the DNC accepting the nomination. There's even like, there's a very inspirational photo of taken from behind a girl looking up at Harris as she's giving that speech. And that's on the back of the book,
So good.
107 Days. And if that image had, carried water and carried her through the whole campaign, she could have maybe won on that energy at the DNC. But she wasn't able to sustain it, and there was probably multiple missteps in the campaign that I very much do think she's ultimately the one responsible for not getting across the finish line.
I also think that her and her team, because I know no politician acts alone, but all of them should have came up with something way better than that.
And with all the money that she had,
So much money. I'm like, where did that all go to? Like these like TikTok dances or
yeah.
I mean, I can't remember if she did
They
TikTok trends at
They
least.
definitely paid influencers and celebrities, and all the celebrities were taking the Democrat side and, supporting Harris, endorsing her. But I think that kind of missed the mark of what people were feeling in that moment, where I don't, again, celebrity culture has been on the decline, as we like to talk about, and they kind of didn't realize how the public was not going to be taking endorsements as seriously as other factors.
Especially with this election. Like, I think after Biden stepped down because of his mental decline and she came up, I like really think there should have been something so much stronger than endorse. Like people were not caring about endorsements this year in particular, I think. Like I don't know anyone who was like, "Oh yeah, Olivia Rodrigo endorsed Kamala. There we have it. I'm going to do that." I think I think it's really good to get like celebrities or like public figures to talk about registering to vote when they like post about it and stuff like that. Like it's really common for people to be like scrolling on social media and then some influencer or whatever posts about it. Like I think that's a good like reminder to do so. But when it came to the president or local politics or like state politics, I think that is also a good thing for endorsements. But when it came to the presidential campaign, I just thought, oh my gosh, this is the most obvious like sponsored thing in the world, if that makes sense. Like, I almost think that celebrities could be cool again if they got more involved on their state level politics.
Yeah, so I think that was a misread of the situation. I can think of several more just off the top of my head though. Like I think her pick for VP was a huge misstep. I'm curious what
Okay.
you think about that.
Yeah, I think she tried to play it safe again. Her whole thing was just playing it safe.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I'd agree. I'd agree with that. And so she ended up picking Tim Walz to be her running mate. I thought from the beginning she should pick Josh Shapiro. I think he was very put together and very like media savvy and could deliver a clear message. And he was more moderate, governor of Pennsylvania, a swing state, by the way. And like his political capital was really high at that moment. And so I was like, she should pick Josh Shapiro. Uh, and then other people were saying, I think Mark Kelly from,
Hmm.
I want to say Arizona. He was like an astronaut, another swing state, kind of like, and then she went with she went with the very kind of, I don't know, avuncular governor of a solidly blue state who had a ton of baggage and like
She was playing it really safe with like people who are already gonna vote for her. Like like well, we've talked about it before. Like she was so not targeting independent voters or swing voters or people who are more moderate. Like I just campaign season is not the time to fuck around with that shit. Like
no, and okay, I'm not done dunking on Tim
I'm
Wolf
sorry,
though.
I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry, I interrupted you. Please go
So
on.
he had a ton of baggage. He had like a past DUI that was on the books. He had a potential stolen valor thing. He was kind of a serial liar. He said he was in China for he said he was in China for Tiananmen Square and he wasn't. He would go back and forth from China like a ton, bringing different groups of students, which is also a little bit strange. He was just a strange guy, self-professed, a knucklehead, and he
Did he
could
call himself that?
in the debate with Vance, he called himself a knucklehead. He
I
also
don't remember that.
I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
he also said on accident, misspeaking that he was friends with school shooters. He was just not a very articulate dude. And so that, from my point of view, was her first misstep. And I think I know who she should have picked instead. Um, and Tim Walz would not even have been my top five picks for VP.
I wasn't expecting Tim Walz at all. When it was announced, I was like, God, not another old white man.
Yeah. So the other white man who she didn't pick was Pete Buttigieg.
And then people really wanted him,
hmm
I want to say.
Which is funny because he also has kind of baggage. Like I would say he was the worst Secretary of Transportation we've ever had. There was like the East Palestine, Ohio train crash, the Southwest delays, the
God, the
hot air
Southwest
balloon
delays.
from China. Like there was just a lot going on in our airspace and on the ground, and I don't think Pete Buttigieg did a great job. But so the scandal though with her saying why she didn't pick Pete, people were kind of needling her about that, and she eventually just said like she didn't think America was ready because Pete is gay. And so I'm curious what your response to that.
Especially from Kamala, somebody who has pioneered so many firsts, like the first, like I said, the first woman vice president, the closest president that we could have come to. She's probably going to run again in 2028. Also, being a woman of color, like there's so many firsts there that I'm honestly surprised that she would say something like that, especially with the amount of training she has, everything that she runs for, the voters that she already knows are on her side and who wanted him to be her running mate as well.
Yeah, I think so. If I recall, Buttigieg said something about like he did think America was ready, and like he didn't agree with Harris's assessment there. I also don't agree with her assessment. I think it's a little bit ironic that sort of the party that's known for like promoting diversity, equity, inclusion would perhaps skip over hiring someone to be your running mate because of his identity or his background. Like that seems a little bit ironic to me, but
You will have, if you've not already had, the experience of walking into a room and being the only looks like you now. Or the only one who has had that life experience, whatever your gender. And I think it's really important that when you walk in that room, you know you are not alone and that we are all in that room with you, applauding you for being in that room, expecting that you will walk in that room with your chin up and your shoulders back, knowing that you carry the voice of so many people who are proud that you are in that room and expect you to use your voice accordingly.
Uh, so anyway, I think can we keep going on some missteps from her campaign? Because I have a couple more.
Yes, 100%. I will always
Okay,
be up
so
to talk about it.
the other thing I think that caused her to lose eventually was inability to differentiate from Biden, which we kind of touched on. And there's this moment on The View, I'm curious if you remember, where Sonny Hostin sat her down and was like, "What would you do differently from Biden, if anything?" And she's like, "Can you think of anything?" And Harris was like, "No."
You said no. I remember
I
that.
think that was the moment she like actually lost. Duh.
Because, okay, like we said, I think it would be a hard thing to like teeter that line of being like respectful to essentially your boss,
Right.
and also she was vice president, is, or at the time was vice president, and she allegedly like had a lot to do with a lot of these decisions, like if she was doing her job right, you know? And so because she had that impact on it, I could see why she would want to say no, but then also there was so much hate and dissatisfaction for the way that the Biden admin did things that I'm not sure why she would say no. Like ideally, I would have liked her to say something like yes and like it doesn't need to be like a yes or and no, a yes or no question. She could have said yes and this is why and this is how I would do it differently, or yes but like kind of defending what she had done and why they had done it in the moment, but knowing what she knows now, why she would do it differently.
I think she should have fully thrown Biden under the bus because, as she said, his people were not treating her very well. They tried to saddle her with the worst issues of the entire presidency, such as the border, and they made her like the AI commissar or whatever. And basically, they're giving her the most difficult, unworkable situations and being like, "Here, you handle this." And tried to like get her to do diplomacy with like Ukraine and like I just think they set her up to fail in my view, because Biden was asleep at the wheel. If she had had a competent president to be working for, they might have been able to actually like have like achievements and stuff. Not that they had none, but I think they set her up to fail. And she, once she got the nomination, I think should have gone full in on just I am completely different. I am critical of this about Biden. I don't think she should have held back because this wasn't really the election to hold back,
She
as we
was
said.
pretty lukewarm when it came to a lot of things. Like, you can't really be in the middle when it comes to, like we were saying, like that differentiation. Like, I really, really, really wish she would have done like a complete 180 instead of defending what was happening, or instead of doing that I hate Trump rhetoric. Like we get it. Like we get it. Like you are here to save us from Trump, but what are you here to do?
The other thing she was here to do was apparently price controls on groceries, and I remember that was sort of a distinct moment for her campaign where they tried to ask her like, "What's your economic policy gonna be?" And that was like sort of the first thing that she threw out was, "I'm gonna like think about price control on groceries," and it just felt like she was not someone who was thinking on like a level where like how are you going to turn the entire economy around. It was more of like this granular, like very detailed, niche specific policy agenda or policy item. And so yeah, I don't think that was a great moment for her on the campaign trail either.
No, I don't think it was a good moment for her, the campaign trail.
Other than the DNC speech, what were some of her better overall moments?
Um, None that I can think of that are better, that was better than the DNC speech. I'm trying to like recall when I felt like the most hope besides then. Um, I kind of something else that I wish that she had done was I wish that she spoke up after losing the election way sooner than she did, though. Because I was like, oh, maybe she like redeemed herself after the election, but then I realized like she kind of took a little bit. And I get that she was like collecting her thoughts. She talked a lot at the event about her mourning. She compared it to the loss of her mother.
Mm.
The only time I felt anything remotely similar is the grief I had when my mother died. And I was grieving for our country. I knew what was going to happen.
Which I really think I understood that in thinking about like really deep grief and having all that pressure on your back and like losing what could be. Um, I really like the way she described that actually. And I feel like it would show people who like are not in that position to feel what she was feeling at the moment. So I kind of understand, but I do wish that she could have swung back faster. Like maybe there should have been something prepared in case of the loss. I mean she did end up losing.
And then the next day going to Howard, I needed to reconcile for all the people who were there that at the rallies, every time I'd ended by saying, when we fight, we win. It was a call and response. And I needed to reconcile that, especially for the first-time voters. And
I agree that that was a great moment at her book event where she was, saying like the grief and how it was similar to her mother dying. I thought that was powerful. And correct me if I'm wrong. So she said they got home to California on January 20th. And didn't she say that that was the first time that her and Doug actually talked about the election loss?
Mm-hmm.
See, that shocked me because that's a full like uh, over 2.5 months post-election loss where are they just like not talking about the fact that like oh she just like lost this extremely consequential thing and like again he's like her spouse like you would think if something is like weighing really really heavily as it would be and she's in all that grief and all that pain and just trying to get like wrapped up and go home. I'm just shocked that like they didn't have a sit down conversation to work out some of that emotion and work out some of that grief together until like 2.5 months later.
Mm-hmm.
That stuck out as odd to me, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, what yeah. I don't know. I can't even imagine being in a scenario like that, much less not talk about it for that long with the person that you share your life with.
And another remark that she had made when she was conceding the election came up during the book event too, where she had said in her concession speech, I concede the election, but I don't concede the fight. And they were bringing that up at this book event as sort of an insinuation of like, well, the fight is still going, like it's current, it's active, and here she is on the book tour continuing the fight. Did you feel like they were trying to like steer that into like, and the fight will continue when she runs again in 28?
I almost expected them to get out this like poster and sign and be like, and I'm running in 2028. Like I kind of thought honestly DC would have been the perfect spot for her to announce that, I think. But yeah, I would have liked the continuation of like the fight goes on more if she talked about things in a more, I guess, like factual, direct way. Like I know that this book tour is happening because of the book that she wrote, like the campaign trail that she had, and how I think she's as a persona trying to keep things like lighter and more inspirational. But that would have been really, I think, powerful if she talked about like true, tangible ways that we could, I guess, continue quote like fighting, or that she herself is continuing to fight besides just like the book tour. Like she went on a spiel about people getting involved in like the arts and showing their voice through different forms of art, which I honestly really liked.
And you know where I ended up? On the camel drums. Just knocked that thing out. It was the best thing ever. And so I'm laughing about this just because I think that there is so much about culture through music, poetry, spoken word, dance, art, that we are producing, from the youngest to those who historically have been recognized, that we have to lift up. And in particular, the culture of this moment, as being produced by Gen Z, and seeing the connection between that and everything that came before and everything that's being created out of it.
But I kind of wanted her to talk about what she was doing. Like she was encouraging people to be like, "Oh, like run for your local school board, like do something, like raise your voice." And I'm like, "But what are you doing right now that is helping facilitate change as well?" And that might be like a really hard,
No,
unfair question
I
to ask of her,
I
but
totally see what you're saying. I also am like, it would be, I sympathize with the position she's in, where it's like you're staking your whole next 4 years on whether or not you win this election or not. So you're probably not making a whole bunch of like alternate plans. And so when that loss happened and she had nothing to kind of like fall back to, I would imagine that would be such a jarring experience to now have to like put all the pieces back together. So in that way, like I do think the book tour is somewhat inspirational because that's her like way of doing that, um, and coming to grips with it, and I think that that's an inspiring thing.
So I say to everybody, yes, I grieved that night, and it has been a process of, you know, going through, and a cathartic process of going through writing about what happened.
But like you said, like what are the practical, tangible action items? She said she was very task oriented, and yet I felt like there was a lack of like what can we do now?
right, like
She kind of has this way of going into like life advice, and I don't I don't personally like that version of Kamala the best when she's like giving out unsolicited advice, like whether it be relationship advice or like she was just saying kind of banal things about like, well, surround yourself with good people. Oh, thanks, Kamala. Like I'm sure a lot of people are out there deliberately surrounding themselves with bad people, and like none of us have ever thought before that it's important to have a good support system. But like, you know what I mean? Like she wasn't saying anything like super profound and
One of them is having a sense of humor about oneself and each other. But I mean, underlying any relationship or partnership, there has to be trust.
yeah, I felt like there was people in the audience who were like eating this up, like it was like they never heard that before or thought about like, oh yeah, it is important to have support systems. And so my preference would be if she had just kind of steered away from like how do you live a better life to like more of like what's the political situation? What am I doing currently after having experienced this loss, and then how where are we taking it from here? Although she did get into that. So
Because in this moment in time, where there are such powerful forces that are trying to diminish and demean and strip people of their dignity, it is important that we have that conversation as a collective and a community to recognize those attacks, recognize how it makes people feel in their daily lives, in their workplace, in their school. And to talk about the fact that we know that that is happening, and as a community, we will stand up and say that we support you. You are not alone.
what did you think about her comments about like America's current political situation?
she didn't like necessarily, I don't think, name drop Trump until like she was being heckled about it. Which I thought was kind of funny too.
Why don't you go to the White House and talk to them over
I thought that the crowd, again, like, and also the crowd was like definitely very, very, very much like, at least the people we were around were like, they seemed to be like very, very large or huge Kamala fans. They were like definitely like, yes, like what you're saying is Bible right now.
there? The women that I joined the sorority with here at Howard, many of them are present.
Yeah, I can't say like I loved that part where it felt like there was sort of like Kamala groupies there, and even the moderator was sort of going on about how like, oh, I went to all these rallies for you, and it was like the highlight of my life, and la la la. Like that's not really helpful. Again, I thought the most consequential stuff that she said was about the current political moment, and when she was willing to speak on that, it was interesting. Like she was kind of railing about this is Kamala Harris was railing
The
about
indictment.
the indictment of
Mhm.
Letitia James, which had dropped that afternoon. So it was kind of interesting to get her like immediate reaction to it, and she was very unhappy about it, clearly.
Trump puts in place a, a incompetent person to make the decision to implement his vengeance agenda. But think about it, the Attorney General of the state of New York has been indicted when a previous prosecutor, who probably did not vote for her or me, said there was not enough evidence.
And I think we're not particularly thrilled
I'm
about
not
it.
very happy about that either.
Like as we had said on our episode about the Comey indictment, we feel like, using the Justice Department to do your bidding, come after your political enemies, whether it be Comey or Letitia James or Adam Schiff, like we're not really in favor.
Oh yeah, and I think that a lot of people in the crowd, whether that be just because they, like you said, are Kamala groupies or not, agreed with what she was saying. I really like that she talked about it actually.
Yeah.
Um, it was like that was like a strong moment to me in what she was saying because I wanted her to talk about what was currently happening and like kind of acknowledging that there isn't just this like bubble of a Kamala Harris book tour, if that makes sense. Like I know it's
Yeah.
her job right now, but I wanted her to acknowledge that she sees everything that's happening, and I'm sure she does, and she has opinions about it.
Okay.
Like what you're saying, like the most authentic version of her is angry.
You know what it reminded me of so much? Okay, you're gonna love this. It was a scene in Catching Fire where they send Katniss and Peeta on like their victory tour, so they're going through all the districts saying like their speeches to
Hmm.
the other district.
We are all of us united, both victors and vanquished, in serving a common purpose, the power and glory of the Capitol.
And I feel like that's been Harris since the election, since she became the candidate, but even now she's kind of like sticking to the prescribed PR script. And so it reminds me of there's a scene in Catching Fire where someone yells at Katniss from the crowd, like, "Tell us what you really think," and they kind of like like the peacekeepers like beat them, and it's like very intense.
Panem today, Panem tomorrow, Panem forever.
But it felt like that. I felt like yelling at Kamala, like, "Tell us what you really think."
And that would have been really interesting if she actually did say what she really thought about what was happening in Gaza too,
Yeah.
and what the Biden Harris admin did during that time as well, because a huge part of like why those hecklers got kicked out was because they were talking about um at least a couple of them. I don't think all the hecklers were the same because I swear that the first one was chanting Donald Trump, but like I couldn't
Mm.
quite make it out. That could have been total just like made up. But this one that did get kicked out was talking about Palestine. They said free Palestine or something like that. Or
So
what about Gaza or
your
something like that?
legacy will be genocide, I think, which
Yes.
is
Yes, that's what it was.
crazy.
Which is crazy considering what we had just talked about and what the world is talking about right now and with the peace deal that's going on as well. Any
To
thoughts about
clarify, I
that?
think it's crazy that they had the audacity to say that to her in the from the audience. But it's a valid open question at the moment of, again, what is the state of Gaza right now? They're just wrapping up that war and, coming to certain terms and conditions, releasing the hostages that got released on Monday of this week. And 20 Israeli hostages are released, and they released 1,700 Palestinian prisoners back to Palestine, and kind of starting to settle, hopefully reaching some kind of a lasting peace agreement. But yeah, so the fact that they were bringing this straight to Kamala and we were just kind of witnessing that, and that was kind of what set Harris off at one
It
point.
takes so much guts to do something like that, I bet.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of a moment that you had at USD, our old college, where you got up and asked a really hard-hitting question to one of our admin members, and I could kind of hear you like very nervous to do it, but you did, and it totally like made that article what it was.
I don't remember what you're talking
But
about.
anyway, no, it's hard. It's hard to like 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 speak truth to power, or to say something confrontational to someone who is like this public figure who's probably more experienced and powerful than you are. But I think it's important also to maybe not like harass these figures, but to give them your own opinion about what they represent and their actions. And that's what this protester was doing. And I
Hmm.
just, as a bystander, observer of all of it, I thought it was fascinating.
Me too. And definitely headline worthy, which
Mhm.
I guess the Post didn't pick up on, but we would have.
Yeah, so anything else? I know Harris also had gotten into a bit about the Chicago situation. She was describing like they're sending in Black Hawk helicopters to Chicago as part of the police crackdown there, and Trump's, you know, moving from city to city, sending the National Guard. That's also been in the news. So what did you think about that?
Well, I mean, I don't think that there should be anything sent to Chicago right now. Like at least like the takeover in DC, like at least there's jurisdiction to be able to do that. I still don't agree with it, but you don't have jurisdiction to do that over any old American city.
Right. So there's been pushback from Pritzker, the Chicago or the Illinois governor, and the Chicago mayor's pushing back. Same in Portland, Oregon, their governor and mayor pushed back. And then Trump was getting into it with Pritzker, saying like, "I'm gonna basically threatening to arrest him
Oh
if he doesn't
God.
comply." And then Pritzker was saying, "Come and get me." I'm like, maybe they should have chosen him as the VP pick or something. If they were going for that Midwest vote.
Uh,
I think Pritzker will run in 28 also, so it's going to be a crowded
you think
field.
he'll run for the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
Pritzker, Harris, Newsom are all in the running. Buttigieg maybe, and I think Ossoff might be a sleeper candidate.
Oh, again.
We'll see, we'll see.
I think we should do an episode where we talk about like potential Democratic nominees. Also, I guess Republican too,
Yeah,
unless Trump decides to take over again. Dear God.
yeah, for real. So anything else from Harris's book event?
No, I think we covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I've been waiting to unpack all of this. It hasn't been too long. Thursday, and currently it's Tuesday, but I'm glad that we got to talk about it. What about you? Anything else? Any lasting thoughts?
I'm sure that there's like stuff we didn't get around to, just because, it was whenever you're in an event like that, like there's a lot of information to take in and process, and it has been a few days at this point since it happened. So I'm sure there's stuff we left out, but at least right now, like I feel content, like we hit on all the stuff, hit on, you know, the missteps of her campaign, which I think is the basic premise of her book. And
Yeah.
wherever she may or may not lay the blame in her book, which we still have to read.
I know, is it wrong to be like reporting on this and being like, anyways, I can't wait to possibly read about it.
I do think like it's an important conversation and a debrief unpacking for the country to have. So I'm actually glad that she's on this book tour so that we can all have that conversation openly and publicly. And if she does expect to run again, it's certainly a conversation that at some point would have needed to happen.
If she expects to run again, I really hope that she opens up throughout the tour. Like, I know there's more stops after this, and it would be so interesting to maybe once she's even more comfortable, hear her talk about even more political events. Like, I'm sure the Trump admin won't slow down, and I'm sure that'll affect her. And I would really love for her to talk about what she really thinks. Tell us what you really think.
Yeah, because the vibe of the book event was a little bit like I told you so. That's kind of how I was.
Said that a few times too.
Well, she's like, I knew what was gonna happen, and
He's like,
that's
I knew it. I knew it. I was like, then why didn't you fight harder? She said it like tw two or three times.
I knew what was going to happen. You told everyone. But I knew, I did, but I knew, but I knew. And it pained me so to know what was about to happen to our country. In fact, the only thing I could say over and over again was, my God, my God, my God.
And it kind of felt like your mom, like condescendingly telling you that she was right all along, even though she had the ability to stop it. Yes, you knew it, but you're telling the wrong crowd. Like that crowd was definitely people that voted for you. Like, why are you telling it? It felt weird because the condescending tone of the voice like felt so targeted in that we were not her targets. Like I actually that is one thing that I clocked and I was like, this is kind of weird that she keeps saying this. Like I'm like, I know you knew it and we knew you knew it. I knew it. Like
And not that she's wrong because she was saying like, well, he told Trump told us he was gonna do indiscriminate deportations. He told us he was gonna like, yeah, like try to get everyone out who wasn't here legally, and now he's following through with that. So to her point, like it is a bit of an "I told you so" moment, but I don't think that message is gonna necessarily help her case if,
especially with that crowd. Like
right.
it's not the people those are not the people you need to tell I told you so to.
But she did have an interesting story, I thought, about the guy who was supporting like Latinos for Trump, who
Mm-hmm.
was telling either Harris directly or someone in Harris's orbit, saying like, "Oh, now Trump is deporting my Latina girlfriend who's undocumented to Sudan."
And he's telling her about the fact that his common law wife, I think girlfriend for 20 something years, is about to be deported to Sudan. She's Latina. She's Cuban. About to be deported to Sudan.
And Harris was, again, her attitude was sort of like, "This is awful, but like I told you so. We knew this was gonna happen. What do you expect?"
And my friend asked him, what, how are you feeling? How do you reconcile that? And he said, well, I didn't think he told us he wasn't gonna do that. He told us he was gonna do something different. And, and here's the thing though, is that, no, he told us he was gonna do mass deportation.
And so again, it's like compelling story on Harris's part. Was the tone exactly right for the moment?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't think she's necessarily wrong about telling those types of stories.
Yeah, I also agree with that. Anyways,
All right, I think that's
are
it
we
for
all
now.
for now? Okay.
We're still in government shutdown mode at the moment.
Oh my gosh, I met some people who worked for the government a couple days ago and they were all talking about how they were not enjoying being furloughed and how crazy it was. Like the girl that I was talking to had just gotten paid like right before the shutdown, but I think she's supposed to get paid again like this Friday, but will not be. So, um I was thinking about maybe trying to interview some people for the shutdown.
Yeah, I definitely think if we can, that would be great. And totally like thoughts and prayers to everyone who is struggling and potentially like doesn't know how they're gonna pay their bills this month because of it. The shutdown seems to be going on longer than past ones. So
Yeah, it's day 14, right? Because it was October
yeah,
1st.
I think so.
Okay.
Good luck to everyone out there
Yeah.
and think of us in DC.
Okay. Washed
Washed
up
up out.
out.